There are 6 hard business lessons that I learned that helped me make over $30 million, all from the man that created Walmart. They're all in this book, but if you don't want to read it, I'll break them all down for you right now. The first hard lesson is something you're not going to want to hear, but it'll make anyone rich. In the book, Sam talks about how he would spend hours upon hours in libraries researching management techniques, retail strategies, just pretty much anything and everything he needed to learn to build a retail business. He read hundreds of books, attended dozens of seminars, and systematically learned everything he needed to know to make a small retail store a billion-dollar success. And the principle here is that you need to learn to earn. I'll tell you from personal experience, the truth is you gotta study 100 times more than you think you do to get rich. But you might be thinking, well, studying is boring, reading books is boring. You're right, it is. And I used to think that until I found a little trick that allowed me to actually be interested in reading books and studying. When I was first starting out, I got a job at a sales company, and the owner of the sales company was a billionaire. He owned like multiple companies. This was just one. And he had all the companies housed in one like large complex. What he would do to be nice is he'd buy everybody lunch every day, and he would sit with different employees every day. And one day I got to sit next to him and I asked him, I said, hey, Jeff, how do you get rich? And he asked me how many books I read every week or every month on money, on how to get rich. I told him I didn't read any. And he kind of looked at me and he was like, you don't read books on how to get rich, so how come you're telling me you want to get rich? Like, people who want to get rich read books on how to get rich. And at the time, I didn't really let it sink in, but later I started reading. You know, I found it very boring. Like, I just couldn't get into it because I didn't know what to read. And so I would read something just to read, and I would get disinterested in it until I realized that what I really needed to do was set a goal and then work towards that goal. And from start to finish, there would be roadblocks. There would be humps in the road. All I had to do was find a book that addressed that first hump, that first block in the road, then read what I needed to read, learn what I needed to learn to clear that hump, to clear that roadblock out of the way and move to the next. And then, of course, I would get to the next roadblock, and then I would read a book on that. And the reason why this made it easy to study is because I was the most interested in my biggest problem. I was the most interested in fixing the thing right in front of me, preventing me from making more money. Because I was obviously interested to solve that thing, when I grabbed the book that specifically addressed that thing, I wanted to read it. I was interested in reading it. I couldn't put it down. And so I read it, and then I solved the problem and moved on. And so here's what you can do right now. Set a goal. Begin on your journey to that goal. Whatever it is, business, life, doesn't matter. And you're going to encounter problems. As you encounter problems, read the most popular book, the most famous book, the book with the biggest reviews on that one singular problem, and then solve the problem and move to the next. And you'll find that you'll be able to get through life very quickly, very efficiently, and you'll read exactly what you need to read at the time you need to read it. That is how you learn to earn. Now, the next hard lesson may seem unethical to you, but I believe when you hear it, you'll change your mind. So Sam had this strategy where he would visit other retail stores and he would take notes on what they were doing that was working. Sort of like when Bill Belichick took notes on other teams in the NFL. Though that wasn't really allowed in the NFL, but in this case, it's allowed. And so he would figure out what his competitors were doing, and then he would adapt those things to Walmart, and he would even make them better. That doesn't mean he would copy their business model or copy everything they did. He would take the best of the best from everybody, and he would discard the rest. And the principle here is you need to imitate to innovate. You honestly do need to steal from your competitors. Now, you might think, well, isn't that wrong? Isn't that unethical? Isn't that cheating? No, because it's the essence of innovation. You see, we would not have medical advances. We would not have space travel. We would not have cars or planes or anything if we didn't grab ideas from competitors, use them, and then go, ooh, I can make this better. Or imagine that you found 3 competitors and each competitor was doing something really, really right, and you just took the things they were doing right, you added to your business. So that's not really stealing. It's simply modeling and innovating. And look, you should be trying to do it better anyway. This is how markets evolve. So for instance, one time I owned this bar and restaurant, and I was trying to figure out how to get more customers, how to grow it. And so I started going around to all the different bars in the town. By the way, please don't drink. I am almost 2 years sober. It'll do nothing for your life. Please don't drink. I'm just telling you this for the sake of learning how to grow a business. So this one bar I went to, I noticed that on Wednesdays they had free pool. Like literally all their pool tables were completely free. The place was always packed on a Wednesday, and normally bars aren't really packed on Wednesday. I noticed that people would just stay for hours upon hours upon hours because the pool was free. But then they would spend 10 times what they would spend on pool time or on quarters in the machine drinking because they'd want to stay and have a good time. And I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, so this is working for them because their Monday and their Tuesday were not busy. Historically, though, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are the slowest nights at a bar. But their Wednesday was very busy, and that's what they did. So what I did was I think it was 5 or 6 pool tables, and we were charging pool time because I had professional pool tables. I didn't have the quarters, so we would charge per hour. So I decided I'm gonna make all the pool tables free 7 days a week. And when I did that, we became very busy every night. And I'm not kidding you. People would come in during the day and they'd play pool all day and they would drink. People would come in at night and they would play pool literally all night, and people would be waiting. And because we had a dance floor on one side and pool on the other, people would dance and hang out here while they waited for pool, and it just all worked together. And after 14 months of ownership, I sold that bar and restaurant for a $300,000 profit, which in the state of Florida is unheard of. And it's because I stole one idea from a competitor, but then I made it better. He only did it one day, I did it 7 days. So here's what you can do right now. Look at your competitors, look at what they're doing right, and then ask yourself, okay, they're doing this right, but how could they get more out of this? What are they not getting out of this that they could get out of that I could get out of? And try to take what they do that's working and amplify it for your business. Because believe it or not, most people, when something's working, they don't even notice it. People from the outside notice it more than they do. This is your competitive advantage. It's you being able to stand 10 feet away from somebody who has a business, who the business is working, and you can go, wow, that's working. I need to do that, and I need to do it times 10 in my business. Now, the next hard lesson might seem completely backwards. So Sam believed that it was more important to make the employees happy than the customers happy, because if you made the employees happy, that actually made the customers more happy. And so he would implement all kinds of programs in Walmart for everything from profit sharing to employee of the month to just everything to make the employees feel good, because he knew that they're on the ground floor. They're the ones in the aisles. And if they feel good, they treat the customers good. And so he made the employee the priority over the customer. And the principle here is happy team, happy dream. Now you might be thinking, well, I don't have any employees yet. How does this apply to me? This applies to you even if you have friends, colleagues, people you outsource to, if you're just by yourself, or if you have a team, and here's why. I've had an online business for almost 10 years, and one issue I've always had is that I had to manage my team. I had to manage things. And even when I first started out and I had 0 employees, I still had to pay my bills. I still had to deal with customers. Like I had all these little things that I had to do that got in the way of the big vision things. And so I started out by hiring an assistant who took care of the things that I really didn't need to take care of, all the way up till recently where I hired a multi-6-figure COO, or Chief Operations Officer, to run my company for me. And the reason I was able to get this Chief Operations Officer, who was a very competitive person to hire for my company, is because I found out what he actually cared about and what he actually wanted. And he wanted profit sharing, but more importantly, he wanted to run a chill, very lean business, not have hundreds and hundreds of employees. When I explained to him that, hey, I'm okay with you having profit sharing, and I want to keep our team very lean, I don't want to have any more than 10 employees at any given time, he had immense alignment with that. And so it was easy for me to get him when there were so many other competitors out there that wanted him. I got him not just for the money, but for the alignment of values. So here's what you can do right now. Simply identify the most valuable people in your life, figure out what they want, what makes them feel good, and give it to them. And when you do that, you will notice that the output of that relationship is way, 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 way more valuable than if you focused on the output. So focus on making your employees happy, and they'll create happy customers rather than just focusing on making your customers happy. Now, the next hard lesson is you have to live extremely cheap, even if you have money, if you want to have a lot more money. At least at first, and here's why. And before I share this, I get it. When you start making money, the first thing you want to do is you want to buy nice stuff, right? You want to buy a better car, a better house, because why are we making money? We're making money so we can have nicer stuff, so we can have a higher quality life. That's the whole point. But hear me out. This man created the most successful retail chain in the world. How many retail stores are there? Like, how many little mom and pop retail shops are there? He created the biggest one. And here's the funny thing about Sam. He drove an old pickup truck despite being a multi-millionaire. He would fly economy to meetings with executives and buyers. He would fly cheap on an airline. He wouldn't fly first class. He wouldn't fly private because he knew that these were unnecessary expenses, that the money that went towards those could go towards building Walmart into what it eventually became. And the principle here is you have to cut to climb. For instance, when I first started making money with my online business, the very first year, we did 2.9 million. And granted, that's after 7 years of not making any money. But that first year, 2.9 million, I lived in a small house that I had purchased for $48,000 that I had saved up like my whole life, bought this crappy little house that was just run down just so I had a place to live because I didn't want to have to pay rent. And I stayed in that house for a long time. I drove a very modest car, and I did this for a full year. And I took that money, and instead of spending it on watches and things like that, I instead hired better people. I hired staff. I bought software. I invested in coaching. I went to events. I got in masterminds. And I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on learning how to do what made me that initial money better so that I could make even more, to make it easier, to build infrastructure that would make it easier. And because I made that decision my first year in business and I lived like super poor and reinvested everything, today I own 2 luxury homes in Costa Rica, this huge $2 million villa in Dubai. I have a nice car in every single country, including a Mercedes 450 GLS, AGM, whatever, in this one. I bought my mother house, my father house, like I have nice watches, I have all this stuff, and I'm not saying that to brag, I'm saying that to say that it's effortless for me to buy those things now because I didn't buy them in the beginning. So here's what you can do right now. Picture what your life or your business needs to be like to make it frictionless, to make it smooth. Think of all the assets, the people, the tools, and the knowledge that you need to make it just effortless so that you're not struggling to make money. And then the money you do make, invest it into building that, not into having nice stuff. And if you do that to the point where it becomes frictionless and it becomes easy to make money, then the money comes easy. You can buy the watches, you can buy the houses, you can buy the cars. Now the next hard lesson is boring. It's tedious and you're going to freaking hate it. But it's another reason why I was able to flip that bar and restaurant for a $300,000 profit in just over a year. And it was my first bar and restaurant I ever owned. Didn't know nothing about the business. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, Dan, I don't own a restaurant. How does this apply to me? Trust me, it applies to absolutely every business. And it's how I grew my Instagram account to over 200,000 followers. So in the book, Sam tells this really cool story about how he would measure the distance between the aisles in his store. So people would walk down the aisles, and one week he'd have them really wide. So there was like plenty of room in between the 2 aisles. And then the next week he would tighten them up so there was less room. And he would do these different lengths, and he would study how many purchases were made divided by the amount of people who walk through the aisles based on the width. Because he was like, wait a minute, maybe people will buy more if it's wider or if it's more narrow. Now, I know that sounds incredibly granular and incredibly specific and a little bit crazy, but it actually worked. And he was able to optimize the length or width of his aisles in order to produce the most revenue per person that walks into Walmart. And he did this really granular approach to testing in every aspect of his business. And that's, again, why Walmart is what Walmart is. And the principle here is you can fine-tune your way to fortune. So here's how I used this principle to grow my Instagram to over 200,000 followers without doing shout outs or any of this stuff. So we created this thing called an Airtable. It's like a spreadsheet, but it's just a fancy software. It's basically a spreadsheet. And what we do is when I release a reel, we track how many views it has, how many likes it has, shares, comments, followers, how many followers that reel brought us. And we put it in this spreadsheet program called Airtable. And then every week, I have a VA who maybe gets paid $5 an hour, goes in and checks every reel we've released, literally every single reel we've released on my Instagram, and updates those stats, because sometimes they'll take off like 3 or 4 weeks later. And to be honest with you, I grew my business with paid traffic, spending money on like Facebook advertising. I'm not really an organic guy. I've tried to learn how to do organic, but it's been really hard for me. It's hard for me to like wrap my brain around it. But what I am good at is analyzing data. And so what I did was I found that there were certain types of reels that consistently produced more views, more followers, and thus obviously when I get more followers and I put out an offer, I get more sales. And like, just to give you an example, whenever I said, here's a little trick, or I say something like, here's something you don't know about, whenever I start a reel with that, they tend to get way, way, way more views. And then I break it down even more granular. Like I'll say something like, here's why I don't like popular thing. One of my reels that has like 3 million views or something like that, it says, here is why I don't like Louis and Gucci Vuitton. And I explain how Louis and Gucci Vuitton are brands for poor people, because the entire purpose behind those brands is to make people look and feel rich. But rich people don't need to look and feel rich. They are rich. They buy different things. They buy appreciating assets, not depreciating assets. Anyway, I went into this whole thing. And so I've identified what reels do better. And then all I do is every like month or even couple of weeks, I go back and I look on the Airtable and I go, oh, okay, these are the reels that are getting more views, more follows, more shares. Let me do more of these, and then let me do less of the ones that don't work. And if you want to take it a step further, I can download that data set, upload it to ChatGPT, and say, hey, here's a data set of all of my reels that are working and not working. Please give me the biggest common denominators of what's working and what's not. And you want to make sure you put the transcripts in there as well so that it can obviously analyze those. You just upload it as a CSV file. And what it'll do is it'll say, okay, here's what's working, here's the consistent patterns, and here's what's not working. And then your next round of reels, you just do more of what's working and you do less of what's not. And we've consistently been able to get more and more views. We just cracked 200,000 followers, and I'm not doing shout outs, I'm not buying followers. Literally, people are just watching my reels, finding them organically and following. It's working really, really well. And I've taken that approach in my business. It's boring, it's nerdy, but if you don't know what to do, you can fine tune your way to fortune. And the final hard lesson, and I had to learn this the hard way, but it is in the book. Wish I would have paid attention. What you want doesn't freaking matter, man. It's not about what you want. It's about what your customers want. And most of the time, we sit there and we go, oh, my passion, and we get blinded to it. And it's just not what people want. Now, you might say, well, Dan, I gotta follow my passion to make money. Yeah, I'm not saying don't follow your passion. I'm saying package your passion in a way that makes people want it. Let me explain. So in the book, Sam talks about this one time where he personally, literally Sam Wall, the friggin' founder of Walmart, personally responded to a customer complaint. And yes, it made the customer feel amazing. But what's more important is he got to go to the front lines and he got to learn how customers are actually feeling and how they're actually experiencing Walmart. And I remember I read the Ryan Holiday book, the Growth Hacker book. And he talked about how when you build something, when you build a product, especially like softwares or membership sites or stores, you think customers are going to use your product in a certain way. You think that they're going to use it in a way that you envision, but they honestly, most of the time, use it in a completely different way. And the best companies that are the most successful, they find out how their customers are using it, and then they optimize for that. And so that's what Sam did. He figured out how people were experiencing Walmart, and then he optimized everything around that experience that they were deciding. And the principle here is cater to conquer. Let me give you an example of how I did it in my online business. So One of the things I love to teach the most is called copywriting. Copywriting is the art of making something sound amazing so that people buy it. It's why businesses grow, because how you talk to your audience, how you describe what you do is the most important thing for them to make a decision on whether or not to buy. It's why presidents get elected. They say the right words in the right speeches, they get elected. It's why partners that are out of their league, that you would think that are way hotter than them or whatever because they said the right thing. It's why companies who sell the same exact thing, some will grow and some won't. It's why wars are started and ended because the right or wrong words were said. Words are extraordinarily powerful. And if you know how to wield words, you can literally rule the world. And I'm very passionate about it. But what I've noticed is that most people do not want to really learn the art of copywriting. They don't want to get great at it. Now, some of my higher end clients that pay us, upwards of 6 figures, like the higher end companies, they care, they want to learn, but there's not a lot of them. Thankfully, they pay a lot. But for most people, they don't want to learn it. There was a period where I had tried to make this work, where I was teaching like advanced copy, and honestly, people weren't really that interested in it. That was until I realized that what people really wanted was they wanted it done for them. They wanted it to be made easy. They didn't want to master it. They wanted it to be made easy for them so that they could either easily grow their business by knowing what to say in YouTube videos, knowing what to say in emails, etc., or they could be a marketer and get clients and do the marketing for them. But again, they didn't really want to master it. So I thought, okay, how can I create something that's still my passion, but allows me to give them what they want? And that's when I created our AI copywriting software, Artimo. We took 10 years of my own copywriting frameworks, $7 million in advertising, split test results, data from $30 million in sales from our company, over $100 million in sales from our clients' companies, and we just analyzed it. And we built our own little AI model. We made this copywriting software that allows you to just answer a couple questions about what you want to do, and it pops out amazing copy, like 100 times better than ChatGPT. I built a little model for our own company to use. My first goal was for us to use it so that I could produce more content without having to think it in my brain. And so I taught the AI how to think like me so that it could write content like I write 100 times faster. It worked for us, so we released it to a few of our clients. They loved it. It was like the best thing since sliced bread, and some of them were professional copywriters, and they're like, this thing beats me. And so then I created a program, and as I record this video, this was just like a week ago, we released it as a product. We did multiple 6 figures on our launch because people they were like, I don't have to learn copy. I just use Artimo. I just use this and it does it. And so you see, that was still my passion. I still get to work on what I love. I still get to sit there and create. Granted, it's an AI, but I get to create copy. I still get to do what I love, and I get to serve the customer where they want to be served. So it's still my passion, but I figured out how the customers want it, and it just blew up, and it outsold any other copywriting offer I've ever had. So anyway, that's just an example of how you can still follow your passion, but you have to give your customers what they want. So here's what you can do right now. If you have customers, go ask them how they're using your product. If you don't have customers, ask them how they're using a competitor's product. Tell them to walk you through it, and you will find out so much more about your market than you could possibly imagine. Now, these 6 hard business lessons were very, in my opinion, instrumental to helping me scale to 30 million. But let's say that you are just starting out and you want to figure out a way to make some money with an easier business model, something that can allow you to get started without a lot of experience or skill or something like that. I've created a video where I walk you through what I believe to be the easiest business model for beginners right now. I'll leave a link to that video in the description. You can click below to watch it. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you in the next one.